G'day folks and welcome back to day 2 of Six Masters 2020. I'm Guz and joining me again for this second series between Pittsburgh Knights and Team Ferox is Raven. Coming off the back of a pretty interesting matchup again, like we've seen in the last nights, all these matchups being super close. TBD though, edging out 2-0 against Kanga.
Yeah, and I mean, the 2-0 was a predicted result from a lot of us on the Snowball Esports predictions, but the community poll reflected otherwise. And I mean, they were close maps in the end, but TBD did bring home the two maps to win the series, and they'll be able to push forward with their Six Masters campaign pretty comfortably.
Well, of course, you guys can participate in those community polls at Rainbow Six ANZ on all of your favourite social medias. The polls can be found on Twitter. But Raven, now it's time to start discussing this second matchup. Pittsburgh Knights up against Team Ferox. Two pretty big storylines coming out from each team. Pittsburgh just lost Stiggs to Fnatic, and Team Ferox now under a new banner and have undergone some roster changes.
Yeah, both teams are going to be under some pretty dramatic changes in general. As you said, Pittsburgh lost one of their stronger players in Stiggs. And the roster changes to Ferox are quite dramatic. Sushi got brought in pretty late at the end of Season 11. And then on top of him persisting in the roster, they've brought in two new players in Deptra and Todd. So this is a really different uniform to what we've seen. And it's going to be hard to predict how this is going to go. We've never seen them compete with this lineup. This is the first matchup, guys, with these 5 players.
Definitely quite a bit of experience on this team. If you work your way down, Shade and Warden both been playing together for quite some time, and Todd, one of the new additions to this team, may be a familiar name to those who have watched Pro League previously. Of course, he played for Oddity, and I believe you actually coached him, Raven, so you should be able to give some nice insight into what we can expect from him.
Yeah, he's got heaps of experience. I mean, Todd's been around since the start of competitive R6 in ANZ, playing on Atletico, which has evolved to be the current wildcard roster. So that's going to help this team a lot, just grounds them and give them that solid backbone in terms of that experience.
Well, Ferox are taking on the Pittsburgh Knights. Let's bring up the lineup and see who they're bringing for tonight's match. Of course, as we mentioned, Stiggs is no longer in this lineup, recently transferring over to Fnatic, and in his place will be Arlo.
Yeah, and Arlo had stepped into a sub role on this team at some stage in Season 11 of Pro League, but he seems to have come back now to fill in this gap that Stiggs has left. And Arlo in his own right is quite a strong player. It's not like he was having a bad Season 11, and I think if he can hit some form, really will reduce the impact of losing Stiggs. And in terms of the experience on Pittsburgh, Strider, Dino have quite a lot in themselves, played since, again, the beginning of the competitive siege in ANZ.
Man, I thought Spruce had a long name, but Arlo definitely taking the cake here, but hopefully that's not his only highlight tonight. I guess now we can sort of start to break down what we can expect in these matchups and start talking a little bit about the map veto. It's played quite a significant role in how most of these matches have played out. Of course, keep in mind that Six Masters 2020 is a best of 2 format. What that means is that each team gets 1 ban each, and then from the remaining 5 maps, each team gets a single pick. So that definitely shakes up how the map veto is approached compared to what it was previously.
Yeah, it can, and it can really be a struggle for the teams because it means they have to prepare for a lot more maps than you normally would. The veto isn't going to be as narrow or predictable. So yeah, it really has changed things and shaken it up a bit and adds a new flair to some of these series that we'll get to see in Six Masters.
Well, the veto is ready. Let's see what maps we will not be heading to. Let's see what the teams have banned out with their single bans. It will be Consulate and Border taken out. Thoughts on that?
I mean, Border's a pretty common ban in ANZ in general, and I think given the way Pittsburgh Knights play, and it's quite aggressive, very run-outy, Border favours that play style pretty strong for them, so Ferox just not wanting to deal with that. And Consulate was a strong map for Ferox last season with their previous roster, so I guess that's what Pittsburgh Knights would be looking into, but it's hard to say whether that really persists with the way the lineup has changed.
Well, it's time to see where we'll be heading. Let's see what the teams have picked for this best of 2 series. First up, we'll be heading to Coastline. That'll be Pittsburgh Knights pick, and then it will be Clubhouse, selected by Ferox. Let's discuss Coastline first. What can we expect from these teams?
Another strong map for Pittsburgh Knights. They played quite a bit of that in previous seasons, and even in Challenger League, I feel like I remember them playing quite a bit of Coastline, so it's always one they've fallen back on. I think that will be a bit of a struggle for Ferox because it does require being strong with attacks because it can be a little attacker-sided. And so if you have coordinated attacks, that can be where you really hit home some good rounds. So that's going to be a big question mark on how Ferox's synergy can be, given they've brought in 2 new members on the fact that Sushi was also relatively new when he joined at the end of Pro League, or midway through Pro League.
And then I guess moving on to Clubhouse, it's almost a stark contrast to the way in which Coastline is played. Clubhouse, a lot more reliant on hard breach, whereas on Coastline, you pretty rarely actually see a hard breach on the board at all. On top of that, it's pretty heavily defender side for the most part, especially if we see something like a Thatcher and Mavban combo or something crazy like that come through the ban phase. How is that one going to play out? Because if Pittsburgh Knights get really nice control and momentum on that first map that they've picked, there's a chance they might be able to carry that over. Or if that contrast in playstyle occurs, then they might hit a bit of a brick wall.
Yeah, and I think this is going to come down to, again, the question mark we've got with the hole that Stigs has left. Because Pittsburgh Knights were always not too bad at Clubhouse as well. They had some pretty big wins. I mean, even Six Masters last year when they were Acme, they managed to beat the Elevate roster. Of course, it was a bit different back then, but regardless, they managed to take Clubhouse off of them. So it's not like it's a bad map for Knights, but I think it definitely favors Ferox more in the way that their playstyle has probably developed.
Well, it's looking like this matchup will shape up to be quite tight. Let's see what you guys at home think. Let's bring up the community poll and see what the results are. Pittsburgh Knights will lead the charge with 46% of the vote. The draw on 19%, but Ferox not trailing too far behind there on 35%. Pretty close.
I think this is a really good picture of how this series feels. I think either team could potentially take a 2-0, but I think there's a solid case for how a draw might come about. I think given the fact that Pittsburgh Knights have more of their core roster from Pro League, that might be how it's favored towards their side. And I think that's a fair assessment in that they're going through less changes. So therefore, you would assume that their consistency should still be there.
Yeah, and I mean, personally, I, for the Snowball esports predictions, picked Pittsburgh Knights to 2-0 this series. But that was before the news of Stigs leaving the roster, which we'll probably talk about over and over, but it will have a big impact on how this team plays out. He brought a lot in terms of his leadership, as well as his aggressive play style, and trying to fill that gap and fill it pretty quickly. Because, of course, we don't know quite how long this has sort of been in the works and how long Arlo has been filling that hole. But it hasn't left a lot of room for them to really consolidate that. But we are going to find out who will be stronger here on Coastline. It's Pittsburgh taking on Ferox. Let's jump straight into it, Raven. This should be a cracking game. Coastline, renowned for its aggression, and both these teams will likely bring that to the table.
Yeah, these bans could really shape out how it plays as well. See what the attack is. Well, the Ying gets banned because we've seen that seem to be pretty common. Nomad is a great one from Ferox because that will actually facilitate some runouts. And they are the ones on defense first.
Second attacking ban, of course, will be the Knights, and they're going to take Ying off the board. Nothing too unexpected thus far. Occasionally you might see a soft breach like a Buck taken out, but maybe with his nades being taken away, teams are a little bit more comfortable in dealing with him. Valkyrie will be the first defensive ban. The second one, what can we expect?
Valkyrie is a strong ban for Coastline, so that's a solid pick there from Knights. The second one I think is probably going to be more common. Probably a Maestro, Echo, Mirror. It doesn't usually stray too far out of that, but it really could change up some things if it's different. And nope, it's just going to be the Mirror.
Did see Mirror sneak through in the Consulate map played earlier this evening, but she will be taken out here. Mirror having quite a large impact really now in how a lot of these sides can play out. Definitely makes Penthouse much more viable, so the team's just not really wanting to deal with that. Does look like Kitchen Service will be the first side attempt today here by Ferox. Let's see what they have to bring to the table.
Now, we're going to be starting off in Kitchen, and that's one thing that Coastline can be good for, is that a lot of sites can be viable, and teams have different ones that they favor. We see Blue Bar Sunrise picked often first. Hookah is actually a pretty common pick first as well. So Kitchen is going to be what Ferox go with here, and they've got a lot of utility that's going to have to be dealt with. There is a Thatcher available that Knights haven't chosen either, Guz. Seems to be a strange trend at the moment.
Yes, very, very strange. So wait and see what sort of impact that may have on this round. Of course, Ferox, with the ability to bring quite a bit of, quite a number of gadgets that can deny intel and progression onto side. I mean, Shade can bring a couple of shields, Warden with the ADS devices, Deftra with those Mozzie pests, so it's going to be a lot to deal with. And on top of that, it is the Mute Mozzie combo. Woo! That they will have to deal with.
Yeah, and not the Jaeger-Wamai combo that we've seen a bit of, but yeah, not coming through here, which means that there will be a bit of assistance there in terms of how they clear their utility. Knights starting off their attack from Sunrise and not taking any time at all to get in and control this part of the map. So that's a great start and a really important one because they can cut the rotates in and out of Kitchen Door around Cool Vibes, Courtyard, and the Blue Bar. So nice start there from Arlo, playing with a bit of confidence and probably some good droning from Knights nice and early.
Ferox, interestingly enough, do have a rotate hole established inside of service. So quite an aggressive counterplay from them on the defense. As Dino now tries to progress through Sunroom in towards security. Looks like both teams really playing quite aggressive at the moment, and Hayward will come out on top. Depcha dropped off the board, but a quick refrag will drop Juicy.
Yeah, good start there. And traded back, so it's just going to be even for now. Knights have, again, really pushed up deep here. Warden on the hunt, seems very much aware of a player in luggage. Sees the barrel, is in slow pursuit, and that player has actually slipped away. So for the time being, he's safe, but no, actually pushes into the engagement. Bullets go back and forth, but no damage dealt, and no frag coming out from there.
We have now eclipsed the halfway point in this round, giving the Knights just under a minute 30 to mount their attack. Not much in the way of map control. Not a lot of soft breach destructibility on site either, which you would come to expect on Coastline. These defenders sitting pretty safely on site, not really too worried about what could be above. It's a little bit concerning for the Knights, but Dino does manage to pick up one. Todd over towards Bathroom is aware of a player in lobby, but elects to not peek at the SMG. Maybe not the greatest weapon in this fight, as both players enter a little bit of a standoff here.
Time is going to be ticking away ever so slowly. Oh, Dino gets away with that, and oh no way, Knights just absolutely collapse and close that round out. Ferox falling apart in such quick succession there, guys.
Quite interesting considering that the Knights didn't really have a lot in the way of vertical control there, instead electing to take it horizontally, and in the end it managed to pay off. Ferox not going to reattempt that site. We'll now head over to Hookah and Billiards. And they will bring a slightly different lineup as well.
Wamai is going to be in the lineup here. We talked about combos, Jaeger Wamai being one of those, and they've completely taken away the mute Mozzie combo. So that means these drones will be able to come through more freely, giving Pittsburgh Knights more intel and maybe able to push a little more swiftly.
It's going to be up to the Knights to try and clear that utility, but guess what? They haven't brought Thatcher. Wow. Cannot believe that after what we saw in the last map. I mean, we can read in a little bit, I guess, into what Spruce said about it, because even he admitted that after the match, maybe it was an oversight. But at the time, they just didn't really feel it was necessary. So, I guess the Knights winning one round so far without him may be in that same boat. And until Ferox are able to capitalize on that, then maybe it's the play for them.
Yeah, and we talked about it earlier. I mean, Coastline can be a comfort for attackers if you are comfortable on attack. And Knights are the ones with the least amount changed. So if Arlo has been just able to slip into the role, Stiggs is playing pretty nicely. And I don't see why not. The thing is, he's been around that team for quite a while regardless. This could be a real strong comfort map for them, given it is their pick.
Drones now coming out from the Knights as they try and locate Of course, where these defenders are, where some of that utility has been placed as well. Arlo again getting quite aggressive on the entry, trying to shut down any sort of rotates coming out from below, but it does look as if Ferox playing pretty close towards site. Interesting that we're seeing Gridlock in play, Dino playing the Aussie operator, someone that we haven't seen a whole lot of, at least within 6 Masters thus far.
Yeah, that's true. Gridlock for a while there seemed to be getting a bit of pick and a bit of use because she's really helpful. Her utility goes a long way for a lot of different reasons, but she seems to have really started to phase out of these lineup picks. I'd say really in favor of more soft breach because the reliance of that with Goyo has risen higher than the need for what Gridlock brings.
Warden and Todd. The Jaeger and my combo holding the lobby stairs and the 2 players standing off down below. This is a very awkward gunfight. Keep in mind, this is a long way away from site. Both these players draining quite a bit of time. Neither getting overly aggressive here as they are aware that they don't want to give an early pick. Meanwhile, Knights, they'll say see you later and rotate all the way over down towards Cool Vibes.
That was a bit of a strange standoff, not really going anywhere. And they used utility that didn't get followed up, so we come back to bite them. Bit of a waste later on. Entering the last minute now, and Ferox still have some really strong positions all around site, and the Knights haven't had a lot of control taken. I mean, they've got some vertical pressure there as actually Hayward just yeets in. Shade does open it up though. Sushi has found himself in hookah holding a strong position onto the top of Cool Vibe stairs, but again, not a lot of control other than that, and probably not in a position to get a plant down.
His position will now well and truly be given away as he shoots out some shots, but that play will be distracted and taken down. That's Sushi. The refrag comes out, and it's now a 3-on-3. Juicy allowed to be a little bit more aggressive now inside of hookah, and the plant is now attempted by Strider, Arlo, and Juicy. Tasked with covering it. Arlo's position on the main window has been revealed, but he still manages to get a pick, and that plant now has gone down. Deptra and Todd left in a post plant. And it's right on the door here. A very awkward position for Ferox to attempt to retake Strider with a very naughty angle under that table. As both attackers now overstimmed will approach the site. Arlo tasked with this first engagement. Todd will attempt the long arm here. He needs to hold it for 7 seconds, but this could be the play. Will he be able to stick it? Surely not. He does. Ferox disabled the diffuser regardless of the fact that Deptra got those 2 kills. I think he still would have stuck it, but yeah, that was a very weird round in quite a few instances.
Yeah, Ferox just sticking to the guns there. I was a bit worried about that long arm when I saw that he planted in the doorway. It's a pretty good spot to long arm because you can't peek it from the window unless you're repelled, which of course has its own big vulnerabilities. So most players opt not to repel there. And that means that there's only one angle for that doctor hole, and that's through the doorway. So really well thought through and executed from Ferox, and a bit unfortunate from Knights given that their explosion onto site was really good and it got them into that great position to get plant down. Keeps things interesting here, guys, at 1-1, and moving back to kitchen.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
This matchup so far feeling quite close. Definitely expected it to be close even before that Stig's roster change, but even more so now with that change coming into effect. Arlo so far, not playing too badly though, and trying to get a feel once again in this roster in a competitive setting. Going 1-1 so far on the entry, so not too bad from him so far. No massive standouts, I guess, at the moment. Dino
10 seconds left.
currently with 4 frags next to his name, which isn't too bad for a flank watch.
5 seconds to insertion.
Yeah, just catching them as they're trying to rotate, basically.
Attackers are heading out
I mean,
to defuse a
flank
bomb.
watch can be a pretty fruitful position sometimes, depending on the teams you're up against. Ferox, traditionally, in their old lineup, were very well known for flanking around at all times of the rounds, especially Shade, quite a slippery player. Was born in the side of teams like Wildcard in Pro League Season 11. Looks like so far Knights have kept that in tabs, but still a lot of the map to go.
Of course, Ferox, formerly known as Fury, undergoing some roster changes and that change of organization heading in here to 6 Masters 2020. Their last season of Pro League wasn't the best, but also could have been worse. In the end, they managed to finish 7th in the standings. They did have some strong showings though. One of those was against Wildcard, where they played quite strong. Their aggressive play style was quite fruitful. So expect that to probably continue here on Coastline. That is an aggressive C4. Shade attempts it, but it won't do any damage.
Nope, and actually in the process, Warden, not sure where he was, actually got fragged out, actually in that lobby position. So there's another 2 players there. Todd's going to be going down towards security. Shade also heading that direction. Todd's completely going to the other side of the map. So Ferox are really moving around here. Trying to flank in these positions, walking straight into these track stingers. So Dino potentially will be aware of that flank coming up.
Juicy with that sledgehammer, creating some angles to cut off the rotate towards the stairs, and will likely progress in towards VIP and displace some of these defenders on site. When the Knights successfully attacked this side, in fact, they didn't really have a whole lot of presence from above, so a little bit of a change there. Shade getting quite aggressive again here inside of lobby. There's a couple of players outside the main door here. If you can find 1 or 2, this could well swing the tide of this round. There's only 50 seconds left for the Knights to play with, but Shade will fall off that angle.
And not a lot of time, but they do have the man advantage. Whiffing some shots with Shade there onto the lobby player. Dino tagged low, but he's pursued. Solid by Hayward. A lot of frags going out now, guys, making a 3 versus 2. 30 seconds to go. Knights going to try and get this plant down.
Deptra going big with 2 more for his team, but he will be traded out, leaving it up to Arlo and Strider to try and get this kill onto Sushi or go for the plant. Sushi gets 1. It's now a 1-on-1 effectively with Deptra being down, but he gets shot in the back of the head. Unfortunately, the intel isn't there for Ferox, and Strider will take that round. A good play from him in the end to secure round number 3.
Yeah, they've been pretty close rounds. I mean, the first one was a little bit stronger in the side of Knights, but these last 2 have been quite competitive. So it looks like we could be on for a tight matchup here. Knights not looking overly affected, to be honest, with the loss of Stigs. Maybe just a little bit of IGLing in the background or some extra aggression that Stigs could have brought, but they look pretty comfortable. And Ferox, on the other hand, I mean, at least their additions such as Todd, he has a pretty deep knowledge of the game, and it's not like he's new to Pro League, so things like pressure and the weak mindset would be a big issue with him. Yeah, so I think that's really made this a solid matchup.
Bomb located by attackers.
Blue bar and Sunrise bar has been selected by Team Ferox. Of course, we are yet to see this objective played yet. Shall provide some entertainment as we see how they try and approach this site. Blue bar and Sunrise definitely one of those objectives that can be incredibly hit or miss. Often we will see one side effectively slaughtered on this side if they misplay it. So it'll be interesting to see particularly how much aggression Ferox bring, because it's one of those sites that's very high risk, high reward.
Attackers moving to defuse a bomb.
Absolutely. And I think, again, as long as Knights can continue to shut down flanks, they're going to have a pretty solid chance at winning a majority of these attacks, because it has always been something that Ferox lean on a lot. And we just saw it there where they really crumbled on site in that late round. I think that's a really good exposed weakness there, and so far, Ferox are just letting Knights move around, a little bit of map control. They're not really denying them on entries at this stage.
Deptra with the C4, prepped below. Dino is the player in the blue outline, waiting to enter Aqua. C4 pre-placed. Will the timing be right? That is the question. Is there intel inside of Aqua? C4 still there, does do some damage, but it's not a whole lot. Dino will easily survive that encounter. Todd doesn't survive his. He's now going 0-3 here, which is not a great result for him. Can his team recover though? That is an awkward grenade there for Juicy. He is shut down. Warden will run out and reposition back in towards the Sunrise bar. He isn't punished. Zalo is also taken down, leaving it now in a 4-on-3, and we're not even past the halfway point of the round.
Yeah, the timing on that nade was really unfortunate for Juicy. Rotate back to site from Warden. So Ferox in a good position now with half the round played. I'm just worried about that run out again from Warden. He can start making some vertical control. Oh my lord, that pre-fire. Sushi would never have seen what hit him. Pretty common spot to stand. So, hey, nice shot to Dino. Wow. Oh, that's going to even things out.
And of course, no kill cams here in the competitive settings. So Sushi will probably know he's been shot from above, but we'll have to wait until he watches the stream back to see just how dirty he was done there. Anyway, it will be a 3-on-3. Just under a minute now to go as some X-Kairos will be used to try and flush Warden out of this position. Warden uses that as a cue to get aggressive. Mindful of a player to his left. That will be Strider with the diffuser. A key gunfight here, and Strider manages to win that one. Leaving it up to Deptra and Shade now to try and deny the plant. As the Knights will rotate over to assist Strider. Definitely hitting a bit of a slow point in this round, but it could speed up as Strider will attempt the plant. The smoke's going down and Shade will try to crouch walk through and deny it. The Knights don't have the angle to shut him down, but they eventually do establish that cross, leaving it now in the hands of Deptra. It's a 1v3, 40 seconds to try and deny this diffuser. Yeah, the player on his right on cool vibes. This is going to be an incredibly hard gunfight, but he wins it. That's Dino taken out, and it's now a 1-on-2. 25 seconds left on the board. Of course, it takes 7 seconds to counter defuse. He fakes it out once. The Knights not really baited, and they will eventually clean him up, and that is round number 4 going their way.
Knights did really well to bring that back in their favor. I mean, the first half of that was really good for Ferox. They had strong positions. They got the picks to bring it down to a 3v4, I think was their best advantage. But some really solid fragging from Strider in particular to get the entry into Sunrise. Enabled that plant. So again, Knights looking pretty good here on these attacks. And could start to slip away from Ferox if they don't get some stops here soon.
Of course, we have seen earlier tonight some of these maps slip away, particularly against Kanga, but the beauty of Six Masters is that a team is never really out of contention. We've seen teams in ANZ bring deficits back. I guess the concerning thing is maybe that it is on the attacking half here where Knights have the advantage. However, as we did mention earlier, Coastline can definitely be attacker-sided with its high level of destructibility, so very early to rule either team out.
I think that's a really good point about mindset in general with Six Masters. Even if you get to your opponent in 6 rounds, in Pro League with the draws, that's like your map over, essentially. You can't win, you can at best draw, and that can feel a little bit defeatist sometimes. But now it's like even if your opponent's on 6, actually you can bring it back to overtime. You still have a chance to win the round. I think that's a big part of it, and we saw Kanga do just that. They were down 6-2 in the first map in the first series, and they brought it back to overtime.
And of course, these teams are fighting it out for a best-of-2 series as opposed to what the Pro League format was in terms of it being 2 independent best-of-1s. So even if you may lose or have a very close loss on the first map, teams will definitely be using a mental reset between those maps, wanting to try and at least draw the series. Arlo, where was that? Yeah, good night, Warden. No idea where that was, but see you later.
Either way, I think Ferox are trying to implement some aggression there. It was Deptra spawn peeking as the doc. He hit the shoulder of Dino, nothing better, and then Warden on a run out or another peek was punished. So Knights look very thoroughly ready for this kind of playstyle that we've seen Ferox do before. It looks like Ferox is still really leaning into that traditional playstyle that they've had in previous seasons.
Attackers have dropped the bomb diffuser.
Juicy with an interesting bullet hole. Could well catch Todd off guard here if he makes his way down the stairs. Todd was crouch walking over towards the top of White. Currently going 0-3, so he will probably be a little bit disappointed in himself if he does rotate down there and is taken out. But it does look for the meantime he'll be playing it quite passively.
Knights have just taken it a bit slower now that they've got this advantage. Get this map control. That VIP wall being opened by the defenders actually now helps the attackers because that's an angle you would normally open with Habana, but they're going to open a different one instead, which is going to cut Shade's rotate through 90. So this is in good control with Knights with a minute to go. It means they're going to be able to spend some time to get something set up.
A surprisingly high amount of presence from Team Ferox here over towards Theatre and Penthouse. Often we see the defenders nowhere near there, but
Attackers have
they've
recovered
invested
their
quite a bit of
diffuser.
time and utility into setting that up to try and slow down the Knights. Strider, though, he will shut down Shade, and they now have a clear man advantage.
It really just feels like every time that Ferox try to make a move that Knights are just there to shut it down, because again, Todd is shut down. Hayward with the double now, making a 5 versus 1. All up to Sushi, and he is under absolute pressure here on Cool Web Stairs.
He does find one, but that's going to be all she wrote. Knights will win that round quite comfortably. And look, I know we've brought up Sticks a couple of times in the broadcast so far and the impact that he may have had on this team, but so far they are still looking pretty comfortable.
Yeah, their attacks are looking pretty coordinated. They're generally shutting down a lot of the things that Ferox are throwing at them. So it's pretty good. They don't look overly hindered. Arlo, like I said, he's quite a strong player in his own right. When he was playing on Extricity, which was a pretty popular under-18 team in ANZ, he was often doing really well for them. So seeing him translate that into Pro League and continue it here is really great. And that means that Ferox really have some big issues to deal with, because they're now down 4-1, facing quite a large deficit.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
Not looking great. Keep in mind this is PK's map pick. So Ferox, I guess you could say, not necessarily expected to win this map. And again, this new map veto system means that teams essentially need to have a 6 map deep pool, where previously you could argue they may have had up to 2, maybe even 3 insta-bans, but now you just get the 1. And you have to basically be praying that if you have another weak map or 2, that your opponent doesn't pick it, or you could be left pretty exposed.
10 seconds to go.
Another thing that's not too
5 seconds left before
or
insertion.
massively abnormal about Coastline is sometimes attackers' sides can
Attackers are moving
have
out.
quite solid
Locate a
runs.
bomb and defuse it.
Ferox themselves, in fact, last season had a couple of Coastline maps where they were down pretty large deficits and brought it back on attack. It was on the back of Rock, in fact. I remember him having a massive game, but he's actually not on the team anymore, so that's not going to be an option for them. One of these other players is going to have to step up and help facilitate that kind of comeback.
One thing I will give credit to Ferox is their setups do have some pretty interesting ideas going. For example, I mean, that rotate in service with the shield
Attackers
is
have
something
located a bomb.
quite unique. And maybe you could argue that it hasn't quite worked the way they would have liked, but I think it's definitely interesting to see that teams are still continuing to develop on a map that, when you think about it, was released quite a long time ago. Coastline has been in the pool for quite some time.
Yeah, really long time. Velvet Shell was when this map came out, and that feels like an eternity ago. Matter of years. So yeah,
Yes.
Coastline, a pretty big comfort map for a few teams, and I mean, it hasn't produced massive amounts of innovation and strategies, and it's really one of those maps that's been fleshed out a lot, and it does mean that that's how attacks can be so strong, because it's been fleshed out. Attackers know what they're doing. The roles are pretty defined.
Shade below on Pulse. Has some intel on the players above. Alex not to use his C4 yet, I believe.
A bomb has been located.
No, he did use his C4. Thank you, MC, for bringing up the beautiful new UI, which keeps track of all that utility. It does have an interesting angle at the drone hole. Sees the leg of Dino, I believe, but doesn't really do a whole lot of damage, and that gridlock will make his way to the main door. There is a gunfight ensuing at 90. That's Arlo taking on, I believe, Depcha. Down towards Hookah. Both players, though, will think better of that one, as we now have a minute to go.
I think Ferox have done a lot better job. Oh, I was about to say stalling out the initial picks from Knights, but actually a waterfall of frags as Knights are just running over the top of them. 5 versus 1, all up to Depcha yet again.
45 seconds on the board. He has a C4 in hand. Might be enough to get a couple of kills, but surely the Knights will not let this one slip away. They are aware of a player potentially here in security. Hayward tasked with holding that angle, and I definitely think Knights will have a fair indication that he's in there after Depcha decided to pre-fire. The warbang's coming out. Surely he can't survive much longer in this kill box. The plant is going down by Strider, as we will now enter the post plant. No, we won't quite enter it, as Knights will close out that round in flawless fashion, and that will be 5-1 in favor for them in the half.
Really, really good attack half from the Knights in the end. I mean, even that round they lost, it was actually a post-plant clutch, if you want to call it that, from Ferox. And it was just a long arm. So it's not like there was a massive outplay. I mean, you could call that an outplay in its own right if you want to. But regardless, it's not like the Knights got smacked or really messed up. So really strong half from them. And this is looking a bit grim for Ferox. Hopefully they can bring it back a little bit here on attack. Otherwise, Knights are really going to take this one away pretty fast.
Interestingly enough, we're going to see Blue and Sunrise attempted first here by the Knights. It took 4 rounds before we saw their opponents tried, and unfortunately for them, they were unsuccessful. So this might be a case of the Knights flexing their confidence just a little bit on a site that isn't often picked first. They'll be hoping that doesn't come back to bite them, because if they do win this round, they are going to be on match point.
Probably just part of the mind games, as well as what they have prepared in terms of this site. I was saying it earlier, there's a lot of teams that feel pretty comfortable on free sites easy on this map. Penthouse is really the one that's fallen by the wayside. Not picked frequently, at least here in ANZ. So this site was bound to come up at some stage for the Knights, and managed to get it out of the way now.
10 seconds to insertion.
Just quickly looking at the scoreboard there, I see that Hayward out on 9-2 and Strider 6-1. Strider has only died once so far in the match. And after 6 rounds, that's it's pretty damning.
Final preparations in place now by the Knights. Looks like they're expanding their reach over this map quite extensively. And the question is, what do Ferox need to try and do to bring this one back? It's a very tough ask. This first round is really going to be telling of whether or not Ferox are a genuine chance in bringing this one back. Someone has taken damage. That's Deptra. Was that Juicy from below maybe shooting him? I have no idea if that was intentional. I think it was a deliberate kill hole. Deptra, though, gets away with his life and can continue to drone himself forward.
Yep, first minute, not too bad for Knights. Taking a bit of time here. Just all out Ferox on that entry. Deptra's going to try and push down Cool Lives and progress on towards Sunrise, and if they do allow him to put that pressure on, it's going to make it a lot harder to play around the pink cushions area in Sunrise, and even the bar. So really need to maintain solid positions and some good crossfires to prevent that entry.
Strider will send in a Yokai drone. Oh, Sushi narrowly misses it, and it will be able to scathe away. Bleeding more time here on the attack and gathering more intel later in the round for his fellow defenders. The Knights seemingly a little bit cramped up in this position, but Ferox rather, not really in a position to try and flush them out. That shield covering Strider is quite an interesting one.
It's definitely an interesting strat, and it seems to have been a stall point here for Ferox, because they had quite good map control in that first minute. But it's really not progressed past that stage, and considering where the bomb site is, yeah, it looks like they're really struggling to decide what to do here. Probably looking for this default plant over on the B site behind the bomb. But Juicy can peek out and deny. They've still got the Echo drones as well. It'll be Ferox falling into a Knight's trap.
Plant, though, is now being attempted by Shade as Warden gets the first pick. And we've now entered the post plant. 45 seconds given to the Knights to try and reclaim the site. The smokes come out from Juicy, and he uses that to cover his push forward, but he will eventually be taken down. The pre-fire shuts him down in this round, and another kill will drop the pre-attempt, and now it's Juicy is left in a 1-on-5. Todd kills his teammate with a nade, and he actually manages to pick up one. Juicy, but is traded out. Is that the first? Did Todd get a kill in that round? Because it may well be a case where his first kill in this game is a team kill. Maybe he got one earlier. I don't know. Last time I saw the scoreline, he had 0 kills. But either way, a little bit unfortunate. But they win the round.
Yeah, look, yeah, his first kill for the game. Frag grenade, team
Oh,
kill.
no.
Nice.
Well.
Bad luck, but hey, at least they got the round because then it doesn't feel as sore. And I think that really came down to a big misplay from Knights. Like they had the Yokai's available for denial, and they missed the chance. The Zofia shot it after the plant went down anyway. So yeah, big misplay. Ferox getting away with that post plant, and then they've clawed a round back. So 3 rounds to even it out here.
Poker Billiards will now have an appearance. Pittsburgh Knights
Attackers need to
cheeky
locate and
attempt at
defuse
that
bombs.
bar hold. Not proving successful in the slightest, really. Definitely starting to get some vibes that we could see it. A swing of momentum back towards the other team here, a trend that's been pretty prevalent tonight. We saw it mainly on teams that were transitioning into defense, but Coastline being that attacker-sided map is falling in favor now of Ferox. I'm sure the Knights aren't going to be too upset losing that round, but I don't think they'll want to drop any more because that's when the buying games can really start to
Bomb
affect you
located
and
by attackers.
never want your mind
Attackers are heading out to
dictating
defuse a
the
bomb.
result. You want to be just playing at the best of your ability and trying to close out these matches as quickly as possible. And what? How is Echo your first player taken out? Why is Echo spawn peeking? Unless it was a random wallbang. But I don't think it was. I think Strider was attempting that. That's pretty nasty.
Yeah, unfortunate to lose Strider early. Not only is it the Echo, but he's been playing pretty well, hitting a lot of good shots. So that's a dominant player off the board. So Knights are starting to give Ferox probably a bit of confidence here, and they have to swing that back in their favor. Hopefully this bomb site works out a bit better for them. I think the double bars pick was more so just to try and throw off the operator picks a little bit from Ferox, but it hasn't worked out, and that's why they've rotated off. Or the timing on that, he was about to see somebody's head peeking out of security. Just missed it.
Sushi in an engagement over towards players running now to security room doesn't pay off for him. Ferox do have the man advantage. As things start to slow down a little bit. These rounds not feeling quite as quick as earlier tonight between those two teams that we saw featured, of course, TBD and Kanga. Sushi, meanwhile, has now progressed in towards office, trying to clear some of that utility that has been placed. That's one of Dino's mute jammers taken down, and that should allow the Knights now to try and get some better intel in towards pool table and drinks.
So far, time has been pretty decent here on these attacks for Ferox. Not leaving it too last minute. And with over a minute to go as they start to take Aquarium, I think this is a really good position for them to be in. Also with the vertical control below, it means that things like a C4 to deny plant aren't really going to be possible.
It's a 5v3 now. The Knights just seemingly struggling here on these early defensive rounds. Presence from below is disrupting Juicy a little bit, manages to get away with full HP and will use the first of his gas grenades, but he is eventually shot in the back of the head. That's Warden making his way through VIP. Arlo seemingly unaware of that, does get one. Warden unable to shoot him from the side, but he will eventually be taken out by the Zofia, leaving it up to Hayward now in a 1 versus 3. He can't get the first. Ferox taking round number 8. And I don't know, maybe they'll be coming back here. I don't know.
Look, very well could be a similar story to what we saw map 1 of the night where Kanga were down 6-2 and brought it all the way back to overtime. Maybe that will be the case. It is only 2 rounds now. They're closing the gap ever so slightly. Knights need to be careful not to give them too much momentum because that can be really hard to counteract.
Hookah Billiards now will be selected by the defenders once again. It'll be 2 rounds straight. Capital being chosen on this occasion. But it really felt like, again, just the Pittsburgh Knights losing those early picks, unable to really recover on a map that can be hard to bring back once the attackers have that man advantage. There's a lot that they can do with that manpower. And
attackers have located a bomb.
the Knights need to now try and steady that ship as it's starting to spiral out of control a little bit here. One more round in favor of Ferox, and they are well and truly in this match.
I mean, one thing in that last round was just losing Strider at the very start. Like I said, not only being an impactful operator like Echo, just that Strider has also been getting his shots. So I think if Knights can at least keep all their players alive in that initial phase, it's quite clearly going to help them a lot later in the round. And finding some drones here on the start of prep phase is Dino. It's a couple that he shot running around. Or placing these mute jammers means that the drone economy isn't going to be too flash hot for Ferox starting this round.
Hayward playing an aggressive position inside of office, aided by Dino. Hayward might not need it though, currently on a 10k so far. It's been a nice map for him. Of course, it is their first map here in Six Masters 2020, looking to make a name for themselves. Depcha tries to flash him out. A couple of members now come to assist. Todd alongside him, unfortunately, is still yet to get a kill. So he is looking to make his mark as well.
Speaking of making their mark, so many drones have been shot in the process of taking this office, and they still haven't got at all close to clearing it out.
Almost a gunfight ensuing in security, and it does eventually. That was Sushi getting out on top with the G8. Still wary of a player that could have been in office, but that's Hayward, who's already made his way all the way over towards Cool Vibes. Arlo maybe looking to reclaim that blue bar, and he does. This could be very, very dangerous if Ferox haven't re-droned it. As you mentioned, a lot of those drones were taken out earlier. Arlo, though, will elect to rotate out. Mindful of a player inside of Courtyard, wins that gunfight. Absolutely fantastic shot from him. Sushi taken down, and now the man count is even.
And just looking at the UI, there are only 2 usable drones here for Ferox into this final minute, and I don't believe they've had a chance to even drone site. Maybe some default positions they can rely on fragging at, but otherwise they're going to have to be face checking this. This is a round looking pretty solid for the Knights. Sure, Juicy is now even lower on HP. That is still a winnable position for them.
Warden now repelling on that hookah window. Knights with a fair amount of intel at the moment. Strider can use that Yoko drone. Of course, no fears of Sushi spotting that with the IQ scanner. He was taken out earlier. And that could be massive in this round if the Knights are able to deny the plan, or at least help get some of these picks. Smoke's now coming out from the Capitao, and Shade on that operator will attempt the plant. Will he be able to stick it? It looks like he might be able to. Potentially, he will. It's now a 4-on-3 post plant. Effectively, a 3-on-3 as Hayward was already down. The res should come out and will. 35 seconds left as they now try and establish this retake. Todd will get his first kill of the map. That's Juicy taken down as Hayward now will creep forward. Strider gets one. Depcha, he could be on for a massive flank here if the Knights are unaware. Strider attempting that counter defuse will have to fall off. It wins the gunfight, but Depcha on that late flank will hit the refrag, and Ferox well and truly back in this map.
They must have shot the yokai, I guess. Even still, I'm sure the yokai was up before they ran into the billiards corner to plant. Just wondering how they didn't have the intel, but Ferox again clawing back. That round looked like it was pretty solid for Knights, but they got the plant down, and post-plant could be so tricky for retakes, especially when there are a solid amount of bodies up. So Ferox 1 round away, guys, from tying it up, and it's still a possibility for them to take this map in 7-5 if they keep this up.
Definitely difficult to envision a scenario where we wouldn't head into overtime in this map, but Ferox could definitely make that a possibility if they win the next 3. I mean, they've won the last 3 quite comfortably, so nothing to say they can't or they won't. Definitely up to the Knights to really think hard about what they're doing wrong here and try and bring something to the table to counter this playstyle. Definitely been an intriguing match so far.
Yeah, and Hookah in general just hasn't really worked out for Knights. They attempted it twice, no success. They're going to try Kitchen now. It's the third bomb site in total that they're going to have tried, and if this still doesn't work out, well, they're going to have to make some pretty big adjustments because it seems like a lot of what they're setting up isn't working out.
Attackers must locate and defuse a bomb.
I can see Arlo here on the Mozzie. No mute though to combo with that. Interestingly enough, the Knights also extending their hold in towards Theatre. We did see a pretty similar approach from Ferox. Of course, some slightly different operators. For example, Ferox were bringing that Lamai. The Knights are not. So there's definitely some variation still left on the table.
Overall, we've only seen one defense round one. Only one from the 9 that have been completed here. So yeah, definitely leaning towards the attacker side heavily is this Coastline map tonight. Knights looking to buck the trend so they can at least force an overtime, but Arlo has been taking out early on the entry from Deptra. He did get some shots off, but again, that's going to put Ferox at a man advantage nice and early, taking the Sunrise control. Again, really important for a kitchen take.
A bomb has been located.
I know with the
Attackers
Vector
have
does
dropped a
get
bomb
one back though, so that'll be Warden. One of the impact players for Ferox thus far. Taken down.
Attackers have
Sushi
recovered their
attempts to cut off that rotate. Surely Dino has heard that window get hit and won't run across. Looks like in the meantime he will just sit in luggage. Todd finds himself outside of the kitchen window, wary that his position has been noted to the Knights members. Critically, the diffuser is in the hands of Shade over towards Blue Pass, so that may be where they try and mount this attack from.
Sweeping for electronics.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Starting to scan that intel on the service side, just to decide whether that is going to be worth the push or not. This frag grenade coming out, it isn't placed properly. Not going to net any kill there. Deptra takes some hits again, make it even lower. Knights are starting to be under a lot of pressure here, and there's still a lot of time on the board here, guys, with just under a
Attackers
minute.
dropped the diffuser.
Hayward does get one, so the Knights do have the man advantage. Strong positions being held as well. Deptra trying to take out Hayward, but he's so low on HP that surely he'll never win that gunfight. He elects rather to pick up the diffuser and head towards the kitchen door, seemingly a little bit lost on what to do. Sushi is now the only member to help in getting this plant down, and the Knights will be fully aware of that, playing quite passively, just trying to bait it out. Surely Strider wins this gunfight. He will. Deptra taken down with a headshot, and now Sushi needs to try and enter and refrag it. He will with the pre-fire, the G8 proving too strong on that occasion, but again, the Knights will default back to very passive angles. Oof, Sushi gets another.
10 seconds to go.
But he has to attempt this plant. The time is running very low. Only 5 seconds left. He is forced to stick it. Surely the Knights can sweep in and deny it, but they're unaware of where it's placed. He might be able to flick around. He actually gets one. He doesn't quite get the second though. Dino will secure the second defensive win by either team on this map. That was quite the play from Sushi, but unfortunately, for his team, it wasn't quite enough.
I thought he almost had that, guys. That was insanely close. Hats off to Sushi for that. Really could have been his, and that means that Knights are now on match point. Ferox need to get 2 rounds so that they can bring it to at least overtime.
Oh, I almost thought he had it then, especially that very last gunfight really dragged on a little bit there. Sushi just unable to land quite enough shots, so we are going to see the Knights now reattempt Blue and Sunrise. It was the first site they tried in this second half. Of course, they lost it quite easily to the hands of Ferox, who walked all over them a little bit. This is the opportunity the Knights now have to close out this first map in the best of 2. If they win the round, they win the map. If they don't, Ferox are hot on their heels for an overtime.
Could see another overtime, you're right. It feels like it's well within the realm of possibility that Ferox get the next 2 rounds. Knights just have to secure 1 in order to get the map and push it into map number 2 of the series. They are back at the double bars, which didn't really work out that well at all for them at the start of this half. They did have some good control, but it came down to what I was suspecting was a misplay with their yokais. So if they can make some adjustments, they might be able to bring it back to be a bit closer.
Attackers are moving to defuse the bomb.
Pre-fire's coming out early. Likely just some final adjustments on site. So Ferox are bringing a pretty similar lineup. Todd still, unfortunately, only on the one frag. Hasn't been the greatest map for him so far, of course. One of the new additions to this team. He's trying to find his feet a little bit here in his first competitive game on this lineup. He's doing some entry training at the moment for Sushi. He's entering in towards theatre. Had a big round last time. Can he have another one? He lights up Hayward, but Hayward will run away quite swiftly and doesn't take a whole lot of damage.
No, it definitely doesn't. I thought he might have taken more damage than that, but not to be. Devtra also got tagged up quite heavily in a different engagement elsewhere. So far, Knights will have the HP advantage after that first minute. On Todd's struggles, I mean, got to say, he played with a different team in open quals, which was very, very recently. Only joined Ferox, I mean, officially within the last week. So there's always going to be some teething issues in that kind of time frame.
Hayward again looking to aggress on those white stairs, but we'll think better of it. Juicy playing on the other staircase. Once again, the Knights will just hold firm. We have eclipsed the halfway point in the round, and Ferox now need to start assessing their options and try and pinpoint where they want to attack. Not really a whole lot going on at the moment, and that could change things up as Todd will be dropped. Unfortunately, just really struggling to get himself into this match, unfortunately for him. Arlo is low and could be refragged later in the round, but that's a great way to start things off. Hayward will be taken down though. Juicy in a position to bait it, and he will. The res as well will follow, and now there's only 2 members left for Ferox to keep themselves in this match. The Yokai's drone. The Yokai is spotted rather and will be taken down, but so is Warden, leaving it in a 5-on-1. The Knights are a frag away from taking the map, and they will in a flawless fashion. 7 rounds going their way. What a performance from them. I think that's safe to say that it was slipping a little bit away there, but a 7-4 in the end was still a good performance, I think, considering that for the most part the map was pretty attacker-sided.
Yeah, I mean, those defense rounds in the way the map was playing out are kind of against the grain. So I think they did a really good job to make some adjustments in order to counter Ferox to finally close it out. 3 players going double digits on the side of Knights. Yeah, great job from them. And honestly, we had the big question mark about the hole Stiggs might have left. And so far, I think Arlo seems to be fitting in pretty well.
Yeah, it definitely didn't feel like they were particularly missing him at any stage there. For the most part, they seemed to have a pretty clear direction. And despite losing a significant amount of rounds in a row, they bounced back. They look pretty strong closing that one out. And I think they'll be happy with that result heading into the second map tonight.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because it was their map pick, so they can carry that confidence through into the second. And yeah, on the topic of Arlo, I mean, maybe there is some stuff with comms in the background that we didn't hear that might be considered teething issue, but I think in general, Arlo performed quite well on that map. And they only had some struggles when they were on the defense in the end, and I think that was just due to the way the map was playing out in general. Didn't see massive mistakes that the Pittsburgh Knights were making that allowed Ferox to come in. Just a couple of issues of denying plants.
And I don't want to bang on this too much, but I mean, on the topic of teething issues, it did feel like Todd found himself a little bit pressed to try and get into that game. Of course, he was playing the sledge, so his role is not really to be getting frags. However, only getting the 1 kill, I think, in the end, after what was an 11-round match, probably not the most comfortable position to be in, but they will be heading to their own map pick next, so hopefully he can sort of revert that, throw that map out of his mind and just focus in on this second match in the series.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we won't go on about it too much more, but Todd was playing like a Womai quite frequently on the defense, which you'd think you might be able to get some frags on, and Sledge can be a pretty fraggy op. I think it really just came down to the general teething issues of him joining that team quite late So learning their play style, how they operate, the comms, the coordination, all that kind of stuff, I think that really just got exposed.
Well, the Pittsburgh Knights are leading this series 1-0. Come back on the other side of the break. We will have map number 2.
Attackers are activating the funnel. Attackers bomb diffuser has been dropped. Attackers are activating the bomb. Located the diffuser.
Are you like Caden, who loves to make the most of the slow loading times of his HDD?
Chasing love in an empty bar. Pour a drink till I make it past. The midnight hour seems to come and go, but I know. Walk on up with a drink in hand, sipping mixers 'cause you can. And all the lights begin to switch off. You're chasing the night, holding on for life. Holding on for life, feeding the high, chasing the night, chasing the night. Hotel rooms and city squares, champagne bottles, drum and snare. The sights and cities seem to fall away when you stay. Locked in love for a night or two, losing sleep just to get a few. Day to day, you wanna stay out. You're chasing the night, holding on for life, feeling the high, chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night. Chasing the night, holding on
G'day folks and welcome back to Six Masters 2020 Playday number 2. I'm Guz, Raven alongside, and Pittsburgh just, I was going to say decimated Team Ferox there on Coastline, but well, it wasn't really the case. 7-4 in their favour, but I think it was a little bit closer than that scoreline would suggest.
Yeah, there was definitely some close rounds, but overall it felt like Pittsburgh Knights were more in control than Ferox. They played really well in their attack half, and then on defense, there were just some smaller errors, nothing massive that were really costing them rounds. So yeah, it was a good map from them in the end. It was their pick, and we'll see what Ferox can do on map 2.
Well, of course, we know that Clubhouse is the second map pick. It's Ferox's map pick. What can we start to expect heading into this one? Because as we discussed a little bit earlier, Coastline and Clubhouse are two pretty different maps, particularly on how they play out on the attack.
Yeah, and I have to wonder, seeing as it was Ferox's pick, they probably have a bit of a limited pool given they've had some pretty dramatic roster changes. They wouldn't have had a whole lot of time to heavily prep a lot of maps. So this must be a map they've prepped more so, and I'd expect them to be more organized, and they need to be for a Clubhouse map in general. It's a more structured map in terms of how you attack and defend.
And I guess heading into this series, we were a little bit wary of the fact that the Knights did lose Stigs, and I was questioning my prediction for Pittsburgh to take it 2-0. But coming off the back of that first map, what are our initial thoughts on how that change has affected the team? Because it looks like they're still pretty comfortable with Arlo in.
Yeah, I really don't think it seems to have had a big effect. So I think they will probably still put in a good performance on Clubhouse. They've always been not too shabby at it, and I think Arlo's going to be able to step up. He really proved that he is fine fitting into this roster on Coastline.
Well, let's have a quick recap at the community poll and see how many of you have already been knocked out, and it will be 35%. Of course, we can only end this best of 2 with the Knights winning or the draw. So there's still about 65%, if my math is correct, that are still in with a chance.
Yep, good job. Good job. Nice.
Thank you.
Guys. And yeah,
Thank you. It took me a little bit, but we got there.
You're right. And I still think the draw could be possible. Ferox, while we saw how they played on Coastline, there's still some question marks over them because that might not be a map that they prepped for. Clubhouse, on the other hand, is a map that you would hope have prepped for, given that they had the pick of 5. So I think given that they've probably got a bit more control over how they're going to play this out, it's going to be pretty close.
I mean, starting to theory craft the bands as we jump straight into the action. We've seen Thatcher make it through the last 2 maps. It's going to be interesting to see if he'll make it through again. Probably unlikely on Clubhouse, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's jump straight into this second map between the Knights and Ferox. What are you expecting for the bans, Raven?
Yeah, Thatcher, Maverick, 2 really common bans on Clubhouse. Maybe the Ying. It wasn't... it was banned, wasn't it, on Coastline? Oh my god, I've just gone blank. But regardless, I think Ying is always a possibility to be banned at the moment, given how she is played. There's the Maverick. So I'd say it's either going to be Thatcher or Ying. I'd be surprised if it's any other operator. Maybe Capital.
Oh, okay. So Thatcher will be in play, which I think if the teams actually decide to bring him, we'll switch up maybe a little bit on how these rounds pan out. Closing out the defensive bans, it will be Echo from the Knights, and I'd say it's probably going to be some sort of Mirror or Maestro-esque operator, maybe even a hard breach denial to follow that up.
Yep, I think you'd be right there, Guz. And I'm sure we're going to see some Thatcher picks because without Maverick, I mean, CCTV wall would be pretty difficult to open, or more complicated than it should be if you're bringing a soft breacher to go below and clear out the utility when you simply could be using an EMP. In the instances of bandit tricking, I mean, maybe there's multiple ways to deal with that, like going below, but regardless, just bring the Thatcher with those EMPs. It's going to make life a lot easier attacking on Clubhouse.
Let's see where we'll be heading first. It appears as if Ferox will be going over to CC and Cash. The Knights will be bringing the Thatcher. So this could play out quite differently to what we've come to expect with Thatcher being banned. And I think this is one thing that may have been overlooked by some people with this Ying buff or change coming into the game, that has left that possibility of Thatcher making it through, which can make a significant difference in how attackers are able to progress in towards the site.
Attackers need to locate and
Yeah, well,
defuse
for a
as many
while there
bombs
with that
as they
Thatcher
can.
ban, it meant that a lot of utility had to be physically cleared, whether that's using vertical control or using different gadgets to burn them, so using the stuns and stuff to burn them as opposed to just a straight up EMP. Bringing EMPs back in the board means that while some utility you still have to physically clear, like shields, there's other utility you don't have to worry about using other utility on. Oh my god, utility is a common word in this game. Yeah, so I think Thatcher coming back in is good for attack meta. I think it makes things a lot more simple.
You can stop worrying about grenades now.
5 seconds left.
So basically what you're saying is there's a lot of utility that needs to be cleared by utility,
Attackers must locate and
and
defuse a bomb.
some of that utility can be cleared by the EMP utility. That's sort of what you're saying. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Use
Nice.
utility to clear utility, and it's a utility to be good with your utility. So, utility. A.
Nice. Well, hello and welcome to Rainbow Six Esports, where everything is very straightforward. We hope you're enjoying your stay.
Drone up.
Hopefully Raven will not be as unwelcoming to the newer guests here who may have no idea what even utility is. But we hope you're enjoying your stay. As you can see, the EMP utility is being used on the wall, but that's actually trying to be denied by Deptra, who is currently bandit juggling. And he will get the first of those thermite charges off the wall, I believe, and unfortunately, he has none left now. So there you go. There's bandit tricking 101. Congrats.
That was a pretty, I mean, like, that was a good bandit trick, but that was also a pretty ordinary attempt to prevent it. A really massive mistiming of EMPs and concussion grenades.
A bomb has been
And
located.
that's, the bandit trick was easy as pie for Deptra. And that's going to make things pretty hellish for the Knights. I mean, they do have the Habana, but they're going to have to be very selective with how it's used now.
They also have no EMP grenades left, so that Thatcher basically not really having a whole lot of impact in this round. So despite him making it through that ban phase, Ferox have made the Knights feel the pain of that mistake. And
Attackers have located
now they only have a
bomb.
minute and a half to try and work around what has been a pretty big hole in their attack thus far.
Yeah, I think at this stage, if Ferox just hold these positions strongly, it's going to be tough for the Knights because they're going to have much more funnel points than normal, and there's a massive rotate that they cannot easily cut there that you normally would when Kennel's wall is open.
I'm not sure how many ex-Kairos Dino might still have, but if they can try and maybe clear those bandits from below, he could come through. But he's actually used them all already over towards construction, so that's no longer going to be an option. It's very hard to imagine a scenario here where the Knights win this round.
Got a bit of time, 50 seconds. And going to be very tough to clear out this coward position, but he misses the run up the stairs and no refrag coming out from his teammates. So Strider, beautiful refrag there. Oh my god, it actually doesn't come out as a trade. Oh, this could be a Knights round now, guys. Starting to swing back into their favor.
Some mistakes from both teams could dictate the winner of the first round, and now Warden is left in a 1-on-3. Somehow the Knights have crawled this round back, but Warden wants to try and shut it down and gets the first onto Dino as the diffuser is recovered.
15
The
seconds
risky
left.
vault in here. Warden in a great position to potentially deny it or even go for the common run out here.
Oh,
This could be massive if he times it. He only just needs to deny the plan and they may not be able to reattempt it. He goes for it. He gets one. Can he get the second? That's the golden question, but no. The diffuser will go down. That player is defended by that bomb chassis, and now it will be a 1-on-1. Arlo, the newest member on this team, of course, replacing Stigs with full HP and a great opportunity to win the round, possibly looking for a bullet hole. Either way, he wide peeks it, gets the frag, and the Knights, from pretty much out of nowhere, will claim round number 1.
really good discipline there from Arlo not to actually shoot when he first saw him because the Jaeger was actually facing his direction. Waited a little bit, you could say risky, but I like it. Well played from the Knights, as you said. You basically wrote them off with about 50 seconds to go. And just through some great refragging and aggression, they brought that back. That's a round stolen away from Ferox, you'd have to say, given how successful that bandit trick was.
Definitely a great comeback there. Sushi with a very strategic six pick there from the Vamai onto Vamai.
Big brain.
Yes.
Attackers
PK
need to
will
locate
never
and
suspect
defuse
that.
bombs.
I mean, for those of you maybe who have never watched Rainbow Six Esports, we were discussing this earlier. Of course, the 6-pick phase of the round gives either team an opportunity to secretly switch out one operator for another. Of course, their first 5 initial picks are revealed to one another, so they have a little bit of an idea on what they can expect. That 6-pick does offer that opportunity to switch things up a little bit. Of course, Sushi not really using it to full advantage there. No real point switching back on to the same operator, but either one, he mistakenly clicked it, or
10
2,
seconds
he was
remaining.
going to switch on someone and was probably told not to.
5 seconds remaining.
Maybe. That does happen. Sometimes it gets a bit chaotic and the operator pick is in competitive. You only have 15 seconds to pick your first operators. And that goes really quick. You'd be really surprised. And that's probably more often than you'd think, used to fix some mistakes in when you click operators.
Looks like the Knights once again will prepare to open up this Kennel's wall. Last time, all of that utility injected into the wall didn't really net a result. The Knights were still able to win the round, but not in the most comfortable of fashion. They'll be definitely hoping that they can open it this time. Arlo is there with Sophia. He can use the lifeline to try and disrupt the bandit troop. That first EMP just within range of the wall, that could have been disastrous to start things off. And there we go, the first one will be tricked. I don't know what the Knights are doing here. This is some of the worst attempts to open the Kennel's wall I think I've seen in a long time. This is what happens when Thatcher's banned for so long and the teams just forget what to do.
I just loved the flick look from Strider towards the Zofia. He's like, bro, what are you doing? Looks like they're actually just rotating away. They're not going to try anymore. They're going to take construction across. Dino Hayward already have map control needed there. And maybe they're just going to go straight construction push.
Definitely a strong look of disapproval in the eyes of Arlo. The rotate now has been committed to. Looks like they're going to try and open the con wall with some X-Kairos. And that'll be a nice angle now in towards Cash, already being monitored by Dino. We saw a similar angle open up in the last round, helping to get some picks, and expecting this round to be no different.
Juicy being very patient, holding this rotator. He might be able to catch one, but no, the timing actually repels all the way up. He's just completely missed a great opportunity to catch Warden. It's finally going down. The concussions working a treat, and even the pre-fire.
A bomb has been located.
Oh, man, it's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen some bandit tricking on this level, but it won't pay off. Knights now have a very direct point of entry in towards CCTV. It's Todd, Sushi, and Warden left to try and hold the fort. Sushi in a nice position on rafters, but his rotation surely will be cut off. Warden's in oil pit. No one's really going to be greeting him anytime soon. So once Sushi dies, this will surely be the round in favor of the Knights. And there we go. It's Warden now left all alone inside of oil pit. Scheider attempting the plant. 20 seconds left on the board. Even if he denies it from below, plenty of opportunities to reattempt it. He's actually fallen off it. I don't know if that was deliberate or not. Surely, oh, this could be massive. Warden from below gets the down. No way. They have the intel on site. He might even be able to deny it again if the Knights don't go below. Arlo eventually will sit up on the table. Could potentially still be hit in the elbow, but Warden finds one more. He makes his way up the stairs. Will he be taken out? The shot's a miss there by the player monitoring that angle. Eventually he will be taken out, but that was a very sloppy round from both teams. Very scrappy. In the end, the Knights do get out on top, but my word, that was some of the most interesting siege I have seen in quite some time.
Yeah, there was definitely some sloppiness in that round. That's 100% for sure, but look, they got there in the end, and the Knights secured that round. I mean, one thing that was bugging me is when they rotated into Cash, there's this massive evil eye on the wall, and Sledge is standing right near it. Like, just hit the damn thing, man.
Well, let's just take a little bit of a breath after what was an interesting round. We're going to finally go downstairs for the first time in this map. Because, of course, we did see Cash and CCTV attempted twice by Ferox. electing not
Attackers
to
need
go
to
there
locate and
on a
defuse
third
the main
occasion.
bomb
Probably
location.
a wise decision. The Knights looking quite comfortable attacking that side. And I guess maybe that could even be a question that's posed in the interview is, are the Knights actually feeling quite good on this map? Is it maybe an oversight that Ferox have made in taking the pin?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the Knights have always been pretty good on it. And I mean, like I was saying, I think Ferox don't have a massive map pool. This is just probably one of the ones that they have worked on. And the fact that they're struggling a bit on defense
10 seconds to
is
insertion.
not a great sign, because that is what you would probably predict
5 seconds to insertion.
the balance to be leaning towards.
Attackers must locate and defuse the bomb.
Deptra once again on the Bandito.
Swapping mags.
Gets another kill in this round, but his impact, of course, being felt elsewhere, causing a lot of issues for the Knights in trying to open some of these reinforced walls. Expect him to likely make his way over towards Church, and he will. And Bandit trick, or just keep the charges at least on this wall. It's so interesting, I think, to just observe how different the setups and the approaches are from these teams, just on the back of the fact that Thatcher has made it through that ban phase.
Drone spinning up.
Yeah, I guess Ying just not an operator that the Knights want to deal with. Don't want to give that option to Ferox to be able to use those Candelas, not even just to strategically blind your opponent, but the sound denial, which we saw pretty effective last night. Yeah, valuing that more than taking a Thatcher away. And I'm just glad to see the Knights are actually bringing it. I wouldn't say it had a massive effect for them at the moment. And there's no Kaid here for them to EMP Electric Claws off, so I think even on this round, it's not going to have a dramatic effect, but it's always good to have.
Deptra nearly actually got floor bang there from above. Repositioning just in time. Sushi will get one. As Warden flanks around, that drone flanks straight past his face.
Reloading, cover me.
And he will now make his way down Oil Pit.
Warden was lurking for that flank for such a long time. Sushi getting that pick meant that he could freely rotate out. Knights are going to have some difficulties trying to figure out whether he is still around or not. They're on top floor trying to just absolutely face check this,
A bomb has been
see if he's
located.
still around. It's not going to be it. A minute to go now. Making some work on the floor, trying to set themselves up for a little bit of an execute here, but haven't put a whole lot of pressure on site, so I think this is going to be a bit of a struggle to actually get the plant down.
I guess the question is, will the Knights try and attempt an opening on this church wall? So they will nade over the top. The C4 is denied as well, unfortunately, just getting stuck on the top of that wall. And Strider will now proceed forward and try to open it. That nade awkwardly getting stuck there on the top of the wall. The second one does make it through though. Strider now will be able to open it. Warden, however, has been freely let to rotate. He could be on for one big play here. Juicy is on blue and will likely be taken out, so keep an eye on that as the breach now has been opened. Frag's coming out the smoke, trying to delay as, there we go, the flank from Warden does pick up one. He tries to assist Shade, but he's already been dropped. Now in a 3-on-2 as Warden gets his double. He's alongside Toddy trying to deny this plan, and Todd on his own flank gets one. Warden with one more. And Ferox just unable to tame that aggression. Will get their first round here on this map.
A great retake into Church, and the flank just enabled onto Warden was probably the linchpin, because I feel like if they didn't have to worry as much about that blue control that Warden retook, they might have been able to better protect that planter from the flank that Todd had going on. So yeah, great defense from them. They finally secured one. They're going to rotate over to Gym Bedroom, not going to CCTV yet again.
Gym Bedroom, definitely an interesting site, particularly, of course, again, with Thatcher in play, changes up the dynamic quite significantly. So Juicy will be trying to use those EMPs as effectively as possible as we head into the prep phase, of course, for
Attackers need to
round
locate and defuse
number
as many bombs
4.
as they can.
The battle of who can place their shield on the bed there between Todd and Deptra. It's going to be Todd though. Yeah, look, there's a lot of utility that's going to have to be dealt with here. everybody has utility that's going to be a pain. But you know what? They've got the Thatcher, so at least the Mute and the ADS is from Jaeger. Pretty simply dealt with by those EMP grenades.
Left before insertion.
Of course, a lot of utility being brought by Ferox here.
5 seconds to insertion.
That will need to be taken care of. Go shields, castle barricades, and projectile denial, just to name a few.
Locate a bomb and defuse it.
The Knights, of course, do have Thatcher on the board, and some soft breach in Hayward and Arlo to assist, but doesn't mean it's going to be any easier or any less time consuming, so it's really important to keep an eye on that clock and not let it run down too quickly.
Like the order of operation here is for Strider to open Jacuzzi wall. Deptra not on the bandit, so they will not have to worry about a bandit trick to deal with, which I think is a massive sigh of relief for the Knights here. They can just chuck an EMP at that, clear that mute jammer, and it will be opened pretty simply.
Strider opening up a nice line of sight now, pressuring Bathroom, which is attempting to be reinforced, I think, maybe. Meanwhile, Warden on a massive roam again, almost netting himself a pick. As the pressure is now being put onto Ferox quite early in this round, so efficient time management so far from the Knights, and definitely in a great position to translate this to a round win.
Yeah, so far so good. And like I've said before, I think a lot about countering Ferox is just taming that early, or just aggression in general. It's not the straight up in your face aggression that Ferox will bring. It's this sneaking around, flanking, mid, early, late round. You never really know when it's coming. So you just have to be efficient with your drones and flank watch. And Deptra is actually going to open the scorecard for Ferox, which means that they now have a solid man advantage.
That shield posing some issues for Arlo. He will use the lifeline to clear it, but Todd clears him with a bullet hole over towards CCTV. And now this round's definitely shifting in favor of Ferox. Despite the Knights having such early control, Strider will try and get aggressive on those flashes, instead opting to head towards the main stairs, maybe in towards Logi, but Deptra will shut him down, and now it's a 1-on-5. It's Hayward left to try and clutch this one up, but the diffuser where it is, and so many members of Ferox on full HP, this is looking to be pretty undesirable. 35 seconds now left as he makes his way over towards the main stairs, as he tries to find a pick or two to pad his stats, but he can't even find the first, and it will be a flawless round for Ferox.
Yeah, great round from Ferox in the end, and I mean, certain things they're just slipping through that the Knights could have caught. It looked like they had somebody watching Kennel's wall, but Todd able just to go over to the CCTV window and pick off the player outside the gym window. Not a great thing to see, and that means Ferox has now evened it out at 2-2, and they would be expecting to be winning the next 2 rounds, seeing as it is their defense half on Clubhouse, which is of course also their map pick.
The odds are definitely in their favor. They try and bring this one back. Of course, they did lose the first 2 rounds, Ferox, but now they're starting to look more and more comfortable. Valkyrie being 6-picked, and that will provide some more intel for the team Raven.
And defuse as many bombs as they can.
That it will, and this operator lineup from Ferox, I really like. They're utilizing a Valkyrie, which she's been banned a little bit tonight. Coastline and Consulate earlier, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but either way, we haven't seen as much Valkyries as we used to, and this is going to enable the things that Ferox are good at, such as these roams that have been tricky for the Knights to cover, such as Warden early rounds. Just seems to be all over the place. And it's not always shut down, it's actually opened things up for Ferox a lot. Knights not able to counter that. That could be their undoing if they can get on top of these flanks and these loose players. It could go a bit smoother for them.
Attacker's objective is to locate a bomb and defuse it.
Sushi still with one of those Valkyrie cameras in hand, will throw it on the roof to gather some additional intel for his team. Of course, the Knights don't have an IQ on the board, so spotting those might be a little bit difficult. There are quite a few sneaky positions on this map where you can put cameras that are incredibly hard to see, so the Knights will have to be wary of that.
Especially for runouts, which again is something that Ferox would like to do. Todd in particular, I've seen do the classic strip run out, shoot somebody either on garage roof, in garage, near the CCTV window. Really important. And here we go. It's the saga of the bandit trick. And they prevent it this time. Actually, they do. And Alu again pre-fires Deptra. It's worked out much better this time, guys.
It's a little bit of a comedy sometimes watching that issue, but I guess it was definitely cleaner on the part of the Knights on that occasion. Warden, I don't think I've seen him sit still once in any of these rounds, always going for big flanks, and this could be no exception. If there's no additional drones here, surely Warden can get a couple. There's already a nice big hole ready and waiting for him to pre-fire around. Question is, are the Knights ready and waiting? Doesn't look like they are, and Warden playing this very, very patiently. Sledge is inside of Logi. Habana inside of Con. Will be no more. That's Dino taken down. David has turned around and ready and waiting for Warden to approach this. The wide people will be very, very powerful, and there we go. Warden gets 2, and Ferox looking great in this round.
Yeah, it's like I was saying earlier round. This is what Knights need to be careful of and shutting down. And it's all about that timing, that drone missing him in bathroom. Ended up being very critical. And that's also the downside of not actually having a player dead to watch flank drones. There was that one in master bedroom. Might have heard his footsteps near that rotate hole. Would have seen him, or heard him cross back around to logistics at least. But not to be, and Sushi looks like he's going to get aggressive.
The run out is successful, netting him a kill in this round. And the Knights are well and truly on the back foot. Strider trying to use that entry created earlier by Dino, and Will gets 1. That Maestro Evil Eye will be giving his location away in real time though. Sushi knows he's there, but still loses the gunfight. Strider, that's his 3rd in the round, and now Todd is left in a 1-on-2. He whiffs a couple shots there, Juicy low now. He needs to try and finish him off before he can win this round. He does. That's a headshot for him. And now Strider will basically be forced to go for the kill as Todd tries to waste time. Strider will fake out 1 plant. Probably won't stick it. He won't. He falls off it, pre-fires the angle, wins that gunfight, and Todd will be dirty with himself that he peeked so wide. Strider, fantastic clutch there. What a pre-fire, and what a comeback for the Knights. That round definitely against them on most occasions.
That was instrumental Strider round just there. He got so many impactful frags on that push to sight. Here's the impact from Warden though, that really brought it into Ferox's favor, and I'm sure we're both in agreement there that it seemed like it was going to be all no go for the Knights. But man, Strider's entry here, that shot onto the catwalk, and of course the final one that he got onto Todd, insane. So well played from Strider.
Of course, this will now be the final round of the half. The Knights in a position to lead the charge 4-2, or could see Ferox draw it out for a piece. I think in either case, Ferox probably not in the strongest position that they would have liked, especially considering it is their choice of map. The argument that could be made in counter to that is that Thatcher is in play, which could be evening out that attack-defense split on a map, which is, again, traditionally quite defender-sided.
Right, and just the fact that this is Ferox's map pick, I really felt like they would be doing better at this stage. And I feel like a lot of their successes has still just come from what we've seen from the past, is like the plays like Warden, just managing to somehow slip in through those flanks and do some damage that way. But if that doesn't work out, and even when it does, like that round, they still ended up losing them. So just not feeling a whole lot of teeth in what is winning Ferox's rounds.
I was having a look at the scoreboard. Warden currently sitting with the most kills across both teams. Strider not far behind with 8. I think the main point of concern has really been Warden and the way that he's been navigating this map quite freely, which has been renowned for quite some time. This isn't anything new. The Knights should well and truly be aware of the fact that he's going to be playing some off positions. And again, he's going to find himself in oil pit. It has been claymored by, I believe, Arlo. Drone now coming out will surely spot him. Oh my goodness. I don't think that drone spotted him. Will be taken out though, so Arlo is aware that there's a player somewhere in blue.
And at least he got that claymore down just in time, and it's in a good spot, so Warden can't shoot it. It doesn't have an impact to allow him to get up, so yeah, he has just gone back into blue server.
Attackers have located a
Which means
bomb.
at this stage, he's contained. But we'll see how the rest of the round plays out. Knights have made good map control so far. They are all spread across the first floor, making work with the hatches in the kitchen, putting pressure onto bomb sites so that they can better prepare themselves.
Again, Arlo will use his lifeline to clear some of the utility over towards blue stairs. Warden and Debtra tasked with holding that at the moment. He will actually rotate towards some of those ammo crates and has a nice line of sight down the main corridor if needed. He just can't sit still. All these players continually shuffling around, trying to find a new and improved angle and trying to pull off the Knights. We only have a minute now to go for an execute.
Yeah, and no picks at this stage means it's going to be a pretty chaotic execute. Debtra there, the bandit blaster, just ensuring his charge is constantly on the wall here, making it hard for Strider to get it open. In fact, Strider has used his exothermic charges. It's going all down to Habana, and oh, Strider again brings some shots into Debtra, but it was actually Juicy that finished him off.
Yeah, Juicy, I think, is well running the AR-33. Not often seen, but Strider will be taking down a great shot there from Sushi. Turns it down into a 3-on-4. The entry being stalled out massively. The Knights need to bring something out of the box here. Hayward is in dirt and could be on for a big play here if he catches any of the members of Ferox off guard. There is a player to his left. Wallbangs blue, almost hits one. Pre-fires to his right, but will be taken down. And now it's Juicy. Left in a 1-on-4. 5 seconds left. He finds one, but he needs to find 3 more. In fact, he only needs to find 2 as one was down, but it doesn't really matter in the end. Shade will eventually end his life, and it's a 3-all half.
I think Ferox held on to that round pretty well by the fact that they didn't give any early picks. So by the time that the Knights were onto site, it became a bit hard for them to really maneuver themselves on. And again, Debtra and the impact tricking at Church Wall just meant that nothing was happening in terms of opening that. Really stalled out the Knights. But on the other hand, I don't know whether a 3-3 I'd be happy with if I was Ferox after my defense half.
Yeah, I don't think in reflection they'll be too happy with this first half, but I think the fact that they're still well and truly in contention here is something they have to be happy with, and the fact that they didn't let
Attackers need to locate and
what was
defuse
looking
bomb.
like a match that was going to slide against them actually do so. They did bring back that 2-0 lead, so I guess in that respect they'll be pretty happy and trying not to really think too much about that first half now that they will be attacking, because I think they're already going to have their hands pretty full on this one.
Yeah, we'll see what the Knights have in store for them on their defense half. Strider just getting a freebie drone there in stock. That white container.
10 seconds left before
I think
insertion.
reflecting on it, given some of the errors that we saw out of Knights as well, and some of the man advantages that Ferox were holding, it definitely could have been much more in Ferox's favor.
We'll have to see if Ferox will pay the price as we enter this half 3 apiece. An equal opportunity for either team to win this map. Of course, the Knights did win the first match in this series of shots thrown out from Sushi. So if Pittsburgh do win this map, they take full points tonight in the best of 2. Ferox, though, they're still fighting for a draw in this BO2. So a lot on the line, critical points to be won, which will play a big part in how the rest of the season shapes up.
So far, this defense given away too much. Dino could have been severely punished for that early spawn peak. Dots, they're very much aware. He might be still around, but looks like he's actually dropped back to site, so not much of a stall at this stage. Warden's been taken very low. Lucky to be alive, in fact. And that could have been a big drama, given that his ex-Kairos are only just really starting to come out.
See again.
A bomb has been located.
As Ophir at the top of blue stairs. It's Deptra on this occasion, of course, not Arlo, because he is now defending the switch of halves. It's likely that Ophir will use the lifeline to try and clear some of that utility. Look like there's really a whole bunch to deal with, though. Warden, meanwhile, was down, has been picked up again, though. As the blue hatch will be worked on.
Now that Warden's used his ex-Kairos, he can be a little more unleashed. Doesn't have much HP though, so not going to feel as comfortable to be able to do what he does best and poke these exposed angles. He's just going to hold blue for now. Boom Lions could really be his worst enemy, but they aren't picked. For some reason I thought Legion was there, but I don't know. It's getting late. I think I'm not looking at things properly.
That's okay, Raven. You'll be okay.
Thanks,
We'll
bro.
get through this. We'll get through this. Has been quite a long night. A lot of these matches going quite the distance.
Oh.
As Dino will drop Todd, but is retraded out. There's not a lot of time left here. Only 35 seconds on the board. A couple of players inside of dirt. One of those being Sushi with the diffuser. So it looks like it will be a full armor retake for Ferox. There's a couple of players in blue that need to be taken care of. Deptra drops one. As the other will rotate back in towards Church. Warden with decent control, but low on HP is taken down. Arlo not even looking behind him where those players in dirt are. No idea what he's thinking in doing that, but he doesn't get taken out just yet. It is though a 1v3. Can't find the player dropping the hatch, and Ferox will take the round, and in doing so, they will take the lead.
Yeah, not sure what might have been a comm issue. Maybe when the kill from blue was called out, maybe he called blue. I don't know, because if that Bennett had actually peeked towards dirt and got that pick, he could have caught two players hatch dropping. It really could have played out differently. So funny how small things can change around. Ferox inch in front, and for the first time of the night in the lead. Yeah, pretty sure. First time ever.
Church and Arsenal will be reattempted by PK. Arlo jumping onto Mozzie, of course. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe that Yano or Oryx are out of quarantine, so I don't think he could have picked them. And there we go. Yeah, he will confirm that he's switching to Mozzie, so that there's no disadvantage to Ferox.
Being defused by attackers.
Actually got autoed. That does happen sometimes. Habana was another pick here that's quite interesting. The Knights trying to implement something a bit different. Curious how Dino's going to use it, to be honest, because I've seen a lot of alibi pick for Gym Bedroom, for example, but not as much for Church.
I guess the question really now is, when do the Knights start to feel the pressure? Of course, they are on the favoured side here. If they lose this next round, that means that Ferox only one away from the match point, and
5 seconds remaining.
the fact that the Knights had such a strong start to this map will only make things a little bit worse, I feel, for their
Attackers are
minds.
moving to defuse a bomb.
It'll be up to them to try and keep focused. Again, it's starting to get quite late here. It's 11:20 in Eastern Australia, so it's getting quite late for these gamers, although it's not really gamer hours just yet.
That's the start of gamer hours, guys. What are you saying?
True, but I'm sure these teams probably, I know a lot of teams like to do warm-up scrims, etc. So these teams may have been playing now for upwards of 4 or 5 hours in preparation through the last map. So it's going to start taking a toll eventually.
Yeah, for sure, especially in the second series of the night. Stamina can play a big role. So that could be what's happening with the Knights. I remember in Pro League Season 11, there were a few matches where they really did kind of die out the longer certain maps went on. So it's not like it's something they're strange to. Hopefully they can overcome it here. That's still a few rounds ahead of them. The match is still very much within their grasp.
Deptra takes a little bit of damage as he walks over that electrified bar hatch. Claim all set up to catch any roamers. They will now look to try and open that. I believe it's been EMP'd, and Morden will now come across to try and open it. He is very mindful of a lot of these angles that have been created vertically. Great catch there by MC. Our wonderful observer, Hayward, inside of stock. Could be on for a massive run around here. The
Defender has
door
left
is
the
open. He
area of
won't be
operation.
detected if he runs across it. It's a very close distance. But he's just going to wait. And
Defender
talking
has
about
left
waiting,
designated
Juicy is
staging
just
area.
chilling around dirt.
Oh, Strider taking off the board now, so 4 versus 4.
The attacker's bomb
Still over a
diffuser
minute
has
to
been
go.
dropped. Attackers
But very much aware that there's another player in dirt here as Shade gets a Claymore kill onto Dino. Oh, and some big aggression from Juicy is absolutely punished. Looking pretty good here for Ferox again, guys. They could be edging forward to 5 rounds.
attackers dropped the bomb
That much
diffuser.
closer to match
A
point.
bomb has been located.
Hayward, though, does eventually execute that flank. Gets one, narrowly misses the second, though. And now Arlo's left. His position revealed. He is taken out. And Ferox now gaining some really nice momentum. Not too far away from closing this one out.
Maybe a bad judgment there from Hayward. He actually dropped Diffuser in kitchen with that first kill on the flank, so he could have played that more passive. Averted some pressure away from that it was Arlo was the last alive, and they could have played out pretty differently, but not to be. Ferox stringing some rounds together, getting more of a lead here, and of course gaining more momentum, so this is becoming tougher and tougher for the Knights.
Of course, it was the least voted upon variable by the community, the draw in this series, although it did have a significant backing. I think it was about 19%.
Defender, protect your bombs from being defused.
Yeah,
I think it was
19%.
19%. So I guess for a draw, pretty high, but of course, still lower than the outright options. And I mean, at the moment, it's looking like that could be the case. It's only just out of reach for Ferox at the moment. 2 more rounds, and this map will be theirs, and the series will be one apiece.
See what the Knights have in store for us on a different bomb site, because of course the only 2 rounds they've played on defense so far were on Church. So changing things up, it's not working
10
out.
seconds to go.
And we'll get to see whether Ferox are a little bit more successful or accurate with
5 seconds left.
preventing the bandit trick.
Attackers are moving out to locate a bomb and defuse
The action
it.
phase now has officially begun for round number 9. Ferox tasked with trying to enter in towards CC and Cash. It's a site that we've seen get a little bit of play tonight, 20 rounds in total in the first half. All of those, in fact, going in favour of the Pittsburgh Knights. So we see a change of fortune here for Ferox on the attack, of course. Be interesting to see if they have some weaknesses on this half as well.
Sensor deployed.
Pretty interesting presence there from Strider in Garage. We're going to piece out now that there's some holes open. Has the chance to get some good intel. A little bit worried about his 6, but nothing actually happening there. And Hayward's going to creep down as well. Looks like they want to get aggressive in some of these positions. Hayward might be able to find one on the balcony. No one there yet, though. These are good positions to be holding in Garage. But it looks like Ferox actually might be ignoring that side completely. Deptra is the only one, in fact, over on the east. The rest look like they're orchestrating a master push.
That could well catch the Knights off guard with that heavy investment inside of Garage. Drone does come out for Warden, already peeking the rotate at the top of the main stairs. Strider has spotted Deptra,
Attackers have
which
located
could
a bomb.
potentially give a false call that they are going from this side of the map. We'll have to wait and see. He goes out to the utility as well, and they try and clear that con wall. It has been opened a little bit. Sushi now will open it fully, or at least attempt to, but that C4 could be massive. Doesn't quite get the target though. Sushi will open the wall. I'm surprised that C4 didn't do anything.
Yeah, potentially he overthrew it. Not sure exactly where it landed. Strider is getting a good amount of intel here, at least onto where that Zofia is. The rest of the push is coming from construction. Still a lot of time for the Knights to have to burn out here. Really going to find themselves under a lot of pressure.
Deptra dropping Hayward turns it now into a 4-on-5. The Knights still with pretty decent positions on side, and Ferox only with 40 seconds now to try and get this main wall open and clear them out. Probably some of the latest play on the Kenner's wall that I've seen in quite some time, and Arlo is ready and waiting with that bandit trick. That could spell disaster for Ferox, who now have to rotate back again with only 30 seconds left on the board.
Yeah, not too sure what's going on there, but they found themselves another pick, so they've got a pretty solid man advantage to get in towards site. Might just end up having to be a frag fest into this final 20 seconds.
Attackers have dropped
3
the
on
bomb
5.
diffuser.
Shots raining out as Arlo does pick up one for his team. The Knights
Attackers have recovered
still
their
in this round. One does rush in and Arlo will be very fragged out. One's opening in the window as well. That'll be Juicy's task to shut down. He gets one. Time not really on the side of Ferox. Can they get the plant down? Strider is now left to try and deny it. It's Shade who's attempting it. Strider gets one. It's now a 1 on 2. He tries to wallbang the common default, but that's not where it's planted. It was up on the table, and now Strider with such little HP needs to find 2 with the UMP. Can't find the first. Ferox take the round. This has been a pretty dominant half so far from the ex-Fury roster.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know. I think timer had hit 0 by the time Strider started pre-firing. That sledge was below, man. If he just actually rushed Cash, he might have been able to deny that. So again, another just small misplay from Knights seems to be their undoing. That's 3 rounds in a row for Ferox. Solid lead now. Match point.
Gym bedroom, potentially the final site we will see here. Ferox currently on a 3-round streak. If they win this, of course, that will mean it's a 4-round streak. Pretty dominant performance from them, particularly on attack. Again, just highlighting the massive difference that Thatcher being in play can make, just opening it up for teams that are ready for that
Attackers need to
operator to
locate
be
and defuse bombs.
in play and to really be in effect.
Again, rotating bomb site, so gym bedroom. That's going to be what Knights are going for. TV not really working out for them at all. Church also not working out for them. This is kind of their last-ditch effort. I mean, even if they win this, they've got to win 2 rounds, and that means they're going to have to win the other 2 sites that they are yet to have success on.
10 seconds to go.
Strider on the castle, of course. Recently
5
getting the
seconds
super
to go.
shorty. He must have pinched it off Mozzie. I'm not too sure what's going on
Attackers are
there, but
moving out to locate a bomb and defuse
opens
it.
up the opportunity to prepare site. Probably, I feel, was Castle's original intention, and that is now realized. And we haven't seen a particularly high pick rate of Castle so far, but there's definitely been some specific sites where he has had an impact.
Definitely an operator full of utility now. On top of that super shorty, he's got the impacts. He can be a bit of a renovating machine. Of course, with his castle barricades at the same time. But yeah, pretty strong. Ferox, similar to Knights, are going to be prioritizing opening this jacuzzi wall. They will have to deal with these electric charges, but that's what the thatch is for. That means this is going to go open pretty easy for them.
The wall is open, exposing the top of the main stairs. But just like every other attack on this side, just because you have that wall open doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's just another way to shut down that rotate in the main hallway. And coming up to Ferox now to continue working around the site, maybe try and open bathroom as well, and that could be their point of entry.
Getting close to the halfway point of the round. Finally, the scores are open thanks to Warden. Catching off somebody in CCTV there. This is looking pretty good for Ferox now. They've got this bathroom wall open. That's a big line of sight into bathroom there. And, oh, Juicy trades back. Depth shot off the board. At least it's equal man advantage now, but awesome frags coming out, guys. Still a minute to go.
It's a 3-on-3 as both teams now try to settle things down and find their way back into this round. Shade's the man to watch. He has the diffuser in hand just at the jacuzzi wall. Arlo's in a perfect position to potentially deny that though. He does down the Thatcher. Quite a big play from him. The C4 is ripped. Doesn't find a target though as Sushi reclaims the diffuser. I highly doubt Shade will be resed, but it looks like they may be able to attempt it. I think that player on Logi might have heard it, but not quite risking the wide peek. As Shade actually does manage to get that kill, and now Ferox have the man advantage. Both Hayward and Arlo now need to try and deny it. Actually a player in sight as Hayward gets one. And Ferox is unable to really get in here and even attempt to plant. Bit of head checking going on as well, so maybe a lack of intel. Arlo is still there inside of the objective, gets lit up, but gets away just out of the player's line of sight. Ward finally will jump in and get him.
15 seconds remaining.
And now it's a 1 versus 1. Haywood and Sushi. Sushi's going to go for the kill. He gets the pick, and Ferox, with a perfect second half, will draw the series 1 apiece.
Really dug deep there on their attack rounds, and full credit to them. I was a bit worried after just how it seemed like they were struggling a bit with their defenses and how Coastline played out, but wow, they really brought it together on their attacks. Knights just with too many mistakes, so yeah, well played to Ferox.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what can happen when Thatcher's in play. I think Ferox definitely were able to utilize that operator to full advantage on their attacks there. It paid off in the end, and they'll be able to at least get some points in their first match, their first round of matches here in Six Masters.
Absolutely, and you know what? They'll actually end up taking the head-to-head in the series as well, because their round difference was just that one map, or one round, sorry, more positive than it was for Knights. So I think all things considered, they should be pretty happy with that. And they've obviously got a lot more to grind in with Todd in the roster as well as Deptra, but Clubhouse looks a lot better than Coast, that's for sure.
And I think raising the round difference there is really important. It's a similar scenario to what we saw with LFO earlier last night, where despite not winning both maps, they were able to get that round advantage in the second map, which has a pretty big impact when we start to think about the standings later in the season.
Absolutely, yeah, it always counts. We've talked about winning the points when they're there to be got. Of course, that counts, but same with the rounds. You have to think about how that can play out later on. If you're equal with the person in first, but you lost the head-to-head, well, that's a lot of prize money that you're going to miss out on. So yeah, it's definitely good to keep in mind, and I'm sure these teams will keep track of it.
And I know it's something that we have been discussing a little bit throughout tonight's broadcast, but let's bring it up again. Stiggs, of course, left the Pittsburgh Knights roster, and after the first map, I think we were both feeling pretty comfortable in saying that, hey, maybe it wasn't the worst thing to ever happen. But now, maybe after that second map, of course, it not being their pick, maybe were there some holes in their attack, or at least their defense especially, that were really highlighted there, maybe with that change?
Yeah, potentially. And of course, that was a pretty last-minute change from what we know, so Arlo wouldn't have had a lot of time to prep. But I think overall, he played pretty well tonight. I don't think he was like the weight that was really holding them back or anything like that. I just think maybe there was some stuff in the background, which hopefully we'll get some more insight later on in the interview. But I think at face value, it didn't look too shabby for them in terms of bringing Arlo in.
And I mean, looking ahead for the Knights, of course, they have Team Sinister up next in their next match. Any thoughts on how that one could play out? Because, of course, Sinister unable to get a map against Wildcard, but they still looked pretty good, especially considering that they themselves have had a pretty recent roster change.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting story because Sinister played quite well against Wildcard, and I would say Wildcard looked the best they've looked for a while in some of those, or in that match. So I think Sinister's probably not going to be an easy opponent, and that will be a pretty interesting matchup.
And of course, Team Ferox will be taking on Wildcard, so a team that is in pretty good form. But, I mean, they didn't look terrible tonight. I think there's a real chance they could take it up to Wildcard. And if we want to look back to Season 11, when they were under that Fury banner, Ferox actually caused a lot of issues for Wildcard. Again, it was when they were sort of feeling their way through the roster change. I think that had come into effect then, I believe. Or
I think it was before, just before, yeah.
Before the roster change. So, of course, it's going to be a little bit different, that dynamic, but I can't help but feel that Wildcard will be thinking about that a little bit in the backs of their head, especially the aggression from players that, again, were very aggressive tonight in this match.
Yeah, and I mean, we spoke to Salix last night, and you asked him the question about that they had that team next week and how were they prepping, and he made a pretty big point about what their weakness was, and it was a lot about that flanks and that mid-late round aggression, the randomness in how some of those players move across the map. So I think they've been pretty aware, and it sounds like they've been working hard towards that. I'm excited to see the result next week.
And I guess now we have a little bit of a moment to sort of think back about that Thatcher ban, which I'm sure we can ask the teams. We have Strider ready from the Pittsburgh Knights. Let's say g'day.
Hey guys,
G'day,
good to see
Strider.
you.
How's it going, mate? Congratulations on getting one map tonight. The question I want to ask straight off the bat, we'll just get it out the way. How are you guys coping with Stigs leaving the team?
Who?
Oh, okay. Stig, did you? Yeah, okay. We'll leave it at that. Raven.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I mean everyone knew Stiggs was IGL. He'd be here instead of me, usually. So it's been a bit different. We've had to pretty much find a place as a core 5 again. So it means that Dino and I and Juicy have really been taking like a 3-way IGL, if that's even possible. And when it works, it does. But tonight on that second map, it showed like our coordination just wasn't quite there. But we're really happy with that first map. It really worked out well.
Yeah, you guys looked really good on Coastline. Obviously, a big promising fact of that is that the attacks looked quite coordinated. Like you said, Clubhouse didn't go the same way. Maybe give us some insight into what really fell apart in that second half, because you weren't actually able to secure a round at all in the second half.
Yeah, so our first half was our attacks, and we were doing pretty well on our attacks on Coastline, so we were happy with that. I think our defense was giving us a lot of trouble, I think, because we were letting them play their game, and their game is very aggressive and shutting down our peaking. I think we weren't quite smart with our refrags at all. There weren't many opportunities tonight where we felt like we were on top of it in terms of the numbers on defense, and I think that really hurt us late round when they would just collapse on top of us.
Yeah, and in that first map, I mean, you also struggled a little bit in the second half with those defenses. Would that be down to the same thing, or were there other variables on Coastline that were affecting you guys?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because at the moment, practicing without Stigs, we've found that it's been a bit of back and forth between whether or not our defenses are good or not. I think at the end of the day, it just came down to communication. And when that breaks down, like you just don't have that team coordination and that team cohesion, which I think we were really comfortable with Stigs. But of course, like we've got to refine that, and really showed on Coastline, because I mean, I was echo spawn peaking on hookah back, so that's not really inexcusable for communication. But I guess it's kind of those kinds of aggressive plays that, at least in my mind, I felt like I needed to do because of the way that they were playing tonight, really shutting down that.
Awesome. Well, of course, you guys will be taking on Team Sinister in your next match. How do you guys think that one will pan out?
Oh, well, to be honest, I just hope that Sinister pick the right site and don't end us up on YouTube for tricking us into pushing bottom floor. Look, anything but that. You know what? 7-0, that's fine. Don't put us on YouTube.
All right, awesome. We'll leave it at that. Thanks, Strider, for all your time, and we'll see you next time.
Catch you later, guys.
See you, mate.
I totally forgot that was against the Knights.
Yeah, iconic. Look, I'm just happy that Strider was able to confirm that that Echo peak was actually a peak, and it wasn't just some like random one tap through the barricade. But yeah, I think he definitely raised some interesting concerns for the team. And it looks like, you know, they know what's going wrong, so at least they can try and work on that as the season progresses.
Yeah, I think in general there was nothing overly alarming from what we could see, at least in how their match played out. There's naturally going to be some issues with changing the roster regardless, so it's going to take some time. They'll start to iron that out. I really think that throughout the duration of 6 Masters, they'll probably be able to build on that and hold some kind of form, maybe mid-table. Maybe if they can get on top of it early, they can push higher up. But yeah, I think things were still looking all right for the Knights.
Yeah, and I guess the good thing as well is they don't seem too worried or too concerned about Stigs, of course, leaving the team. They're moving on, which is a good sign. They're not, you know, resentful against it or whatever the case may be. They're just getting on with what they need to do, and I think their play style showed that. At least on the first map, it was pretty indistinguishable from the team that we knew going into it before, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the big plus out of all of that is that they seem to have really identified what the issues are already. And that's sometimes a big issue when you bring in a new player. Of course, it creates little spot fires that you have to put out. And sometimes you can struggle to find the root cause, and that can take a few weeks or months even to fix. But Strider seemed confident that they knew what was going on and that they're working on it.
And of course, Pittsburgh weren't the only team that had roster changes going into tonight. Of course, Team Ferox as well, dealing with a couple of those changes. So how do you think those are sort of starting to come into fruition? Because there are a couple of times where it looked like maybe not all the pieces were joined together, but then in the second map, they look pretty comfortable.
Yeah, and I mean, Todd was another very late inclusion for that team, I guess similar to the whole Stiggs Arlo situation. And he looked like he had a pretty rough night. I think that just comes down to general teething issues. Going to take some time for all of these teams. They've both won a map, so it seems like they're both progressing at a certain steady pace.
Awesome. Well, we have Sushi from Team Ferox ready for an interview. Let's say hello.
Hi guys.
G'day, Sushi. Loving the glasses, mate.
Yeah.
Is that the reason
just
you guys
don't-
won map number 2? Is that the reason? Is it all in the
look,
glasses?
Like halfway through the map, like after like map 1, we were a little annoyed. Like that was free. We just weren't watching our flank properly, just like by a millisecond. So it was rough. So we decided, hey, let's see what the casters think. And then I looked at Raven and I was like, that's a man who knows how to win. So I tried to copy his glasses, and I think it really helped map 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you should probably work on the filter though. I think the filter's a little bit off, but
Oh look,
I'm
yeah,
flattered.
they're very bad. They're like $2, and I've tried cleaning them. It just doesn't work. It's just for the good vibes, you know.
okay.
but-
Oh, I'm glad
yeah.
that it helped for map 2.
Yeah.
Look, I have a question about map 2, and just in general, we've theorized a lot about your roster changes and how it's played out in Six Masters. Tell us about Clubhouse. How did the roster changes go? Were they in effect, or yeah, just walk us through it.
Right. Okay. So roster changes. It was rough because obviously we had a very short time to find someone, and we literally only like got Todd on board like as soon as like his team didn't make Six Masters. So that gave us like literally like 6 days to prep. And seeing as Todd still has work, we didn't scrim till I think Sunday. So we just had to like learn as many strats as possible, which was like us staying up to like 2 a.m. and just like trying to remember them. And I don't know, having Todd on board, it's like a lot of dedication has been increased. So yeah, it's been pretty good for like a short start, I guess.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
you guys will be taking on Wildcard in your next match. Any words on how you think that one might pan out?
Look, Wildcard, like, we're not scared of Wildcard at all. We know we can beat them. We've got to focus on just not cracking under pressure. Obviously, having like a new roster, some things like we'll accidentally forget something, and then we just like have to work the best with like our mistakes. So, for example, like, you know, on Coastline, we weren't watching our flanks properly, and like after that happens, we have to like make sure we just adapt appropriately because we just weren't doing that in Coastline, which was rough. But I reckon we could take the win, like at least a map against Wildcard, so that should be good.
Awesome. Well, we wish you all the best against Wildcard, and we appreciate your time. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Man, I thought that was a Raven that came up on the screen there for a split second. I literally could not tell the difference.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Imitation is a form of flattery, so look, I'm flattered. It was good to get some insight about the roster changes, and wow, it's even shorter notice than I realized.
Yeah.
I didn't think about the fact, of course, that Todd would have still had work and all that kind of jazz. So only scrimming for what are we? Wednesday now, so that's like 3 days, 4 days. Yeah, they've done pretty well. I mean, like they got a map, so can't argue with that.
Well, I mean, he did mention that they were scrimming as late as 2 a.m. So maybe that second map late at night. I don't know, gamer hours. They've been acclimatized to that, so they were ready and waiting. But again, it's similar vibes really to Pittsburgh in terms of they've identified some of the issues and the problems that they do have. So they'll be able to correct those and work on those as the season progresses. It's not like they're coming out of that map and going, and we have no idea what just went wrong. And on top of that, they have some confidence as well. They're not. Well, they say they're not scared of Wildcard, so that's always a good sign.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that they are confident moving into next week against Wildcard. They did pretty well against them in Pro League Season 11, so they work really hard, which sounds like they already are. There's no reason why they won't be able to take it up against them next week.
Well, of course, that concludes all 4 maps for this evening. Let's have a look back at all the results that have occurred. Of course, it was TBD taking a 2-0 against a battered Kanga Esports. And then we saw Pittsburgh Knights and Ferox take a 1 apiece. Let's walk through that first matchup again, Raven, because that one was actually pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, Cafe, 3 flawless rounds in a row for TBD to start us off on the night. Led to a 6-2 lead for TBD, only to be brought back from Kanga to overtime. And then map 2 was pretty close as well on Consulate, so that was actually quite a banger of a series, pretty close. And then we just witnessed Pittsburgh Knights and Ferox trading maps on Coastline and Clubhouse.
Well, of course, that concludes all of the matches for the first week. So let's have a look at the updated standings to see where all these teams will sit. At the very top, it will be TBD. And as we work our way all the way down, Kanga and Sinister will be down the bottom. But obviously, Raven, it's early days and we could literally see Team Sinister jump to the top. It's nowhere near set in stone.
Yeah, it's hard to say how this is going to pan out. I mean, there's already some surprises. I'm sure we all thought Elevate would have bested LFO, and to see LFO actually up there in third is probably the biggest surprise out of the standings from the first week at least. But like you said, there's still a lot of Six Masters ahead of us over the next weeks, and really looking forward to seeing how it all develops.
And again, we can see really a visual representation there of how big that round difference head-to-head does make. LFO pretty much slammed Elevate on that second map, which gave them that buffer, and that is why they are sitting on top of them in the standings. So it really does, I guess, put into perspective how important each map is. Even if you lose the first, you don't want to be slacking off in the second.
Yeah, and every point counts. It will come back to bite you at some stage, and so especially in the situation of Elevate, when it comes down to those final weeks, if they are neck and neck with teams like TBD and Wildcard for top spot, it could come back to bite them that they dropped 3 points to a lower seeded team. That's just the unfortunate reality of how it plays out. Yeah, I'll have to wait and see how the season proceeds.
Now, of course, before we end the show, Raven, I know that you and Dev have been working on a new project, so maybe let us know what it is and when and where we'll be able to catch it.
Yeah, so this Friday night is the first episode or show of Late Night Siege. It's going to be on Rainbow Six ANZ. It's an Ubisoft show. Come hang out with us. We'll have a special guest, so stay tuned to Rainbow Six ANZ on Twitter for who that will be. And yeah, it should be good fun.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up all of the play here for day number 2 of Six Masters 2020. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you again next week.
Attackers are coming along. 15 seconds to
No
go.
thoughts left in my head. My mind's on mine and it won't forget. But you bring me back from my darkness black. Cause the soul in me and the heart I had for you. It bleeds for you. It bleeds again. Oh, you bring me to life. 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 Bring me to life. Oh, you bring me to life. Now you bring me back to life. Bring me to life.
Attackers are 5 seconds to go.
Tied to run on a 40 line. I'm safe.